Okay, I have a bit to get into before talking about what I ate and cooked this past week. But first, food updates, food news, whatever this section is called. I still haven't really pinned down. Like, I keep notes throughout the week, like frantic notes that I wake up in the middle of the night and I write them down. And I started thinking I need to organize these into sections like food news, TikTok videos that I saw. But I don't even know how to organize these. And I sort of organized it. So let's start with news in quotes. According to the official Chili's TikTok, skillet queso is back. So that's huge. I said that I wasn't going to go back to Chili's before this point, but I actually did go to airport Chili's. Also, I think I sound super sick, but I think it's because it's really cold here and the heat is on. It's like, I don't know, like it was like 13 degrees and that's cold for North Carolina. People's pipes were freezing. Okay, more food news. This is from a true news source, not TikTok. New York Times put out an article called, well, let me click. As the price of beef soars, restaurants are in code red mode. This article sucked. They went around and interviewed a bunch of restaurants about mostly steak restaurants and some chains. I mean, it was like vaguely interesting, but I don't know. Every time I see a New York Times article that might vaguely catch my interest, or it's just disappointing. It's just sort of like glosses over the subject. We all know that beef prices are up. I actually just tried to order a beef tenderloin for Christmas as an experiment, and wow, it was like $49 a pound. Wow. I mean, I guess it's always been expensive. Actually, so I had to order, I mentioned last episode, my mom wanted to order a brisket for Christmas, which makes no sense. And I was trying to order it for, well, you can do a pickup order or a catering order on the Whole Foods website. And then you have to click through to Amazon to purchase it through Amazon, which makes it all feel all the worse. Used to be able to just call the local Whole Foods in my parents' town and just order stuff from the man at the deli. No more. They won't let you do that. I tried calling them. I was so confused because I was trying to order a brisket, and the last day you could order a brisket was the 21st. And I was like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, Christmas is, you should be able to order it up to the 24th at least, or any day. Like, why can't you special order a brisket? And then I finally realized it's because they designate brisket as a Hanukkah only item. So you can only order it for holiday catering pickup. This is a raw brisket, by the way. You can only order it up until the 21st, the day before the last day of Hanukkah. So that was very puzzling to me. I solved the mystery by trying to order a beef tenderloin, which is designated a Christmas item. You can order that up till the 24th. But really, you can only pre-order it for like the 4 days before Christmas. So that solved the mystery there. So I have to have my dad go early and pick up the brisket on the 21st. It's weird because it's like there are families who celebrate both holidays, who might celebrate it. It's like, why? I don't know. I just thought that was a weird designation. There are a lot of people who do mixed holidays on different days. I was thinking maybe I could just order a regular brisket as like a pickup order, but I didn't want to risk it in case they sort of closed off the Christmas days as Christmas only items, and then I couldn't order a brisket even regularly and pick it up on those days. So I just went ahead and ordered the brisket during the Hanukkah days, even though I won't be there to pick it up yet. So just a pro tip, if you're ordering meat or catering items through Whole Foods, that was so confusing. I think next year I'm going to try, there's like one family-owned grocery store in the town my family lives in. It changed hands. It like switched from one family to another pretty recently. It's never been known for its meat, but there are also a lot of Italian markets if you drive into the city, which might be a better option. Anyway, I'm totally off gear. Back to the New York Times article. There's a poll quote that I want to share. Texas Roadhouse did not respond to emails requesting comment. So sad. I think that Texas Roadhouse has one of the best steaks in a restaurant that you can get that isn't like, like a $60 to $80 steak. I mean, they're still up there in price, but for a chain restaurant, Texas Roadhouse is a great steak experience, I would say. Anyway, that article was just a waste of time. Okay, moving on. This is sort of food news, but local food news, local to this podcast, really. I put out a call last week for ways to use pecans, and I had one person reach out. Really the same person reaching out every week, Miranda Winters, with a recipe, which sort of sent me down a rabbit hole. She shared a family recipe for a cookie that their family calls Fifi's cookies. But first of all, she forwarded me an email chain from 2011, which is where all family recipes live. And it was called Christmas Butter Cookies. I'm probably misquoting that. They looked great. I'm dying to make them. And I'm like, I've never had this kind of cookie personally. I wonder where this is coming from. Or I wanted to see a photo. I was like, let me see a photo of what this could look like. And I tried to find a similar recipe, which led me down a rabbit hole to vintagerecipeproject.com, which I had never been to, but it's actually a great website. Somebody is finding old recipe boxes, the hinged boxes that have physical recipe cards in them. And they are sorting the website by recipe box. You can go through each recipe box and it'll say this one's from Pennsylvania from these decades, or this is from the Midwest, or a lot of them don't have any information about them. But one of the recipe boxes, recipe box 90, contained this recipe called Noel cookies, which was a word-for-word copy of the recipe that Miranda submitted. And I mean, it still didn't have a photo, but it gave me a better idea. I mean, did it give me a better idea? It didn't, because it's the same exact wording. It's essentially a thumbprint cookie that you roll in chopped pecans, and then once it's baked, you fill the thumbprint divot with green frosting. So that was interesting. I still wanted to know what is the origin of this. Found some Reddit threads, and it seems that one of the earliest commercial examples of this is the 1963 Betty Crocker recipe from the 1963 Betty Crocker cookbook. This cookie seems to be also referred to as a Polish tea cake or a butterball, sometimes a jam thumbprint. I mean, we all know what a jam thumbprint is at this point. Interestingly, there's a Russian tea cake, which is just a round ball with chopped pecans inside of it, covered in powdered sugar. So the Polish tea cake version seems to be different, and there does seem to be a distinction. The 1963 Betty Crocker version of this recipe is very similar, but it is halved, and it does use brown sugar. And it doesn't seem to necessarily use green frosting. So this was just helpful to get a sense of what this cookie was going to be like, because the people cooking the 1963 Betty Crocker cookbook version of this are definitely posting photos, and people seem to love this. So I'm excited to make these. I don't know when I'm going to make these. I just made cookies and exchanged cookies, but and making cookies at my parents' house is always a gamble. They don't really have baking supplies in the same way that they once did. Anyway, this all prompted me to revisit the Barefoot Contessa jam thumbprint cookie recipe, which my mother made growing up. She was always a huge Ina Garten fan. And I feel like I mean, Ina Garten's always been relevant, but I think the Gen Z girls are really into Ina these days. My TikTok feed is just Gen Z girls making her brownie pudding recipe and cracking into it with a spoon, which is really beautiful. Someone made a blondie version of it, which looked divine. Anyway, Ina's jam thumbprint cookie version. She, instead of rolling in pecans, she rolls in coconut, and the coconut sort of chars in the oven. The ends get really brown and crunchy. And she does both raspberry and apricot jam, which I always grew up in a raspberry jam household. That's my jam of choice. I don't remember doing the apricot jam. I think we have done it, but I think raspberry was the one was our go-to. We always, my mother always bought the Trappist brand of raspberry jam. It's made by monks, and it's really good. You can order it on the internet, or I think you can just get it in a grocery store if you're in New England. Okay, so Ina's jam thumbprint recipes. This is a very similar recipe to the others. It's just like tripled. It's like a 3x version of the original Betty Crocker. 3 sticks of unsalted butter at room temp, 1 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 3.5 cups all-purpose flour, 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. In my opinion, that's too little salt. 1 egg beaten with 1 tablespoon of water for egg wash, 7 ounces of sweetened flaked coconut, raspberry and or apricot jam. I guess also when you're measuring salt, it depends on what type of salt. I guess maybe that would be enough for like a... No, this is kosher salt. I think for kosher salt, it depends on what brand, but seems like too little to me. So yeah, you cream everything, you add the dry, you chill the dough, you roll into balls. Ina does a proper egg wash instead of these Polish tea cake recipes, which just utilize the egg whites for getting the pecans to stick. Anyway, that's the cookie that we made growing up for Christmas and exchanges. The other cookie that we would make, one of my neighbor friends who grew up, like a family we grew up with, they made chocolate crinkle cookies that were covered in a powdered sugar. My mom got the recipe from them and would make those because I was really into them. They're like a dry brownie, which sounds awful, but that's essentially what they are. Okay, so anyway, thank you for that recipe submission. I'm definitely going to try it, hopefully before the holidays are over. The other recipe that I was considering, or use case for this bag of pecans in my freezer, is last night I saw... Well, I'm following New York Times Cooking on TikTok now, which is actually, I thought it would be annoying, but it's actually great. I don't know her name, but there was a woman on there last night making Mont Blanc, a classic Mont Blanc with chestnut paste, and I liked her version of it. It was really towered high with layers of, she created a meringue base that was dipped in like a bowl and then filled with like a chestnut custard or puree of some kind. And then she had interchanging layers of meringue discs and whipped cream. And then she piped the outside with some chestnut paste or what have you. Usually when you Google pictures of a Mont Blanc, they're like a squiggle mess. Like they look insane. But this version was really actually mountain shaped and full of whipped cream. And I thought, I wonder if it would be good, like if a pecan version would be good. I mean, I know pecans and chestnuts are different. I don't see a lot of people making pecan paste. I also don't think I have enough pecans to make a pecan paste. But it made me think, I wonder if that would be good. and it's up for consideration. I don't really have an occasion to make a Mont Blanc. Like, I think making a Mont Blanc and just eating it in my home alone would be insane. But it's something I'm willing to do for the pod. Okay. Moving on. When I was researching brisket recipes, I mentioned I'm going to use David Leibowitz's recipe. And I did end up subscribing to his newsletter and exploring a little bit more his website. My mom's always been into David Leibowitz. He is basically the original food blogger. Anyway, here's a very similar dessert on his website. It's similar to a Mont Blanc. Let me scroll to the top because I was in the comment section where people were fighting. It's called a Salzburger Knockerl, I guess. I don't know how to say that properly. It's like a baked Alaska, but it's not. Well, let me just read you the recipe because I did think it was interesting. I've never had a meringue quite like this. A meringue that has egg yolk and flour in it. Okay. 2 tablespoons of butter at room temp, salted or unsalted, up to you. 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, 2/3 cup of red fruit or berry jam, 6 large eggs separated plus 4 egg whites, big pinch of kosher or sea salt, half a cup of superfine sugar, 2 teaspoons vanilla sugar or 1 teaspoon pure vanilla extract or vanilla bean paste, 1/3 of a cup of flour, powdered sugar for garnish. So, I mean, to simplify this, you basically make a meringue that has eggs and you make like a doughy meringue and you put it over a fruit compote. And it looks like a billowing cloud. And you pile it onto the fruit, like in a casserole dish or a souffle, whatever you want to, something that you would make a souffle in. And you create these 3 mounds to represent this mountain. What mountain is it? I mean, he says, let's see, peaks. This seems more like a great dessert for summer berries to make if you made like a fresh compote. But I guess it would also be really good in the winter because you can store compote. You make the compote or the whatever in the summer, and then it can it sticks around. I'm trying to find where he says like what mountain this is modeled after. I mean, the Alps, blah, blah, blah. Some recipes for Salzburger Knockerl have you make a fruit compote, then bake the meringue in a baking dish, then serve the fruit compote or sauce on a plate with some of the meringue. This recipe has you bake the meringue over jam, which I have no shortage of, but I didn't have the cranberry jam that the recipe advised, and that I've seen other European recipes call for, which I assume are actually lingonberry, since cranberries aren't easy to come by in Europe. Okay. I will say that I like David Leibowitz's blog because he like walks you through some of his trial and error so you don't make the same mistakes. He like goes through like which recipes he researched and like here's the best version, or like here's what I would recommend. I do appreciate that. He does some of the legwork for you when you're looking around for like what recipe I should use on the internet. He's a good go-to person for this. And I will say that he has really nice photos on his website that are both aesthetically pleasing and instructional. Like here's what your like stiff peak should look like or whatever for your meringue. His photo style, it's like a wide aperture style. It really reminds me of Donna Hay. My mom collected her magazines growing up, and I was always really scared of the recipes because they were always in metric because she's Australian. I saw that she has a show last Christmas at Brian's parents' house. We watched it. She lives like on a cliff in Australia in the most gorgeous home, and they were barbecuing for Christmas, obviously. And to no one's surprise, she has the most aesthetic, beautiful home, and the show was shot just as gorgeously as her photos always have been. But anyway, his photo style seems to be very much Donna Hay style. Okay. Yeah, so he has a lot of good tips here. Like, he removes some of the liquid from the recipe because he didn't think you needed them. Blah, blah, blah. So this recipe that he's sharing is from Barenwort Tavern in Salzburg. Let me get to this comment section where people are arguing. Let me find it. Let's see. This person is named Betsy. Mr. Leibowitz, imagine my dismay when I saw that global warming has hit the Alps. Salzburger Knockerl is a dessert created to honor the 3 local alpine peaks, Monchberg, Kapuzinerberg, and Geisberg. The final form is 3 separate but standing peaks floating in a custard. They are white with only a tinge of brown, as the mountains themselves. The difficulty of the dish is to achieve a lightness of texture with enough body to enable the dish to reach the table before collapsing. A consistency not unlike spun sugar candy, with the stability of melting snow. Indeed, the brown tinges that come from baking in the oven only serve to remind one that there is indeed earth supporting these massive monuments. The fruit compote is often served to the side. A tart fruit is preferable. To offset the sweetness of the dessert itself, jam has no place in this dessert. Substituting jam is like substituting whipped cream with sweetened Cool Whip. That I understand. Your end product here in no way resembles Salzburger Knockerl, save that you use the same ingredients. Your ingredient ratios are too heavy. You need more egg whites and less flour sugar for the Knockerl. Anything else, you'll just end up with a sweet souffle type thing. Schön Gruß. Oh, I can't speak German. Sorry, guys. No idea what she's saying. Someone wrote, "Oh, Betsy, what will we do without your expertise? Do you also have a website visited by what, hundreds of thousands, with brilliant stories, charming anecdotes, and beautifully written recipes that actually work? Do let us all know." Michelle wrote, "You must be a delight at dinner parties, John." Someone wrote, "He can sit next to me." Okay, what a waste of time. David Leibowitz responded and said, "I looked at several recipes around the internet, and the one official Austrian tourism site has 7 whites to 4 yolks. This recipe has 10 to 6 yolks, which seems to be very close, and I would agree ratio-wise it is. It also has 2 tablespoons of flour and 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, which is equivalent to 2 tablespoons of flour. So this one does have extra tablespoon, but I suspect it may be because it has additional egg whites. I also found a lot of recipes in German that had the meringue baked on a layer of cooked fruit and sugar, either as a compote or what appeared to be a jam-like mixture." Yeah. I appreciate, David, that David's going to be doing his research before he's posting these to his website. And I know that some people want to claim ownership over their own recipes and their own cultures, and that's totally valid. But I doubt that they've done as much research as he has. I'm going to drink some coffee, sorry. Okay, let's move on from this. Okay. While I signed up for the David Leibowitz newsletter, which I think was Substack, Substack suggested that I sign up for some others, and I did sign up for Dory Greenspan's newsletter. I've always, when I want to make like a quick bread, like a pumpkin loaf or like any sort of like muffin type recipe that's made in a loaf pan, Dory Greenspan is always my go-to person. Okay. I had an idea of just devoting an episode to places that I want to eat at in New York. I keep getting travel offers for like different things or like work related, and for some reason they're never in New York. And I'm like, when am I going to go to New York? I drive through it every year to go home, but it's like, should I just like go there for a few days and eat? So, I mean, I would need like a month. I would need a few months there to go through all the places I want to eat. the first of which, I really want to visit all the places that my former coworkers have opened. So one of my former coworkers opened Elbow on the Lower East Side, which is a bakery. Some of my former coworkers at Mission Chinese have opened. They had a pop-up for a while, but they finally opened Ha's Snack Bar, and I just woke up to notifications that their bistro around the corner, both these are on the Lower East Side, is now open. I can see the Mission Chinese like distant Mission Chinese influence on their work, but they are also very inspired by European bistros, with the type of bistro that you go to where the bistro's name is written on the edge of the plate, the lip of the plate. Their food looks good, and I really liked working with them. Sadie, particularly, she trained me at Mission Chinese. And I don't know, they were all just, sometimes you meet a couple and you just like see that they're going to be together forever, and they've been together for, so long now. Another Mission Chinese person who I actually took over her station when she left. She did a few things, but now has a lunch counter called Salty Lunch Lady, which has like beautiful layer cakes and sandwiches, which is like, it's just like, that's my dream restaurant. I really want to go there. So I think those would be my top picks. I just found out that there's a ring ding bar in New York that does different flavors of homemade ring dings. Ring dings are my favorite Hostess snack, I think. Sorry, I know that ring dings aren't Hostess, they're Drake's. Actually, my sisters, when we were here, we were just talking about how great Drake's branding is. How beautiful it is. It's kind of like the rounded, beautiful, orangey letters of a Dunkin' Donuts logo. I don't know. It just inspires you to eat something sweet and junky. I don't know. I've never really heard people talk about this ring ding bar besides this one TikTok video I saw, so I don't know if that's a must. I would like to go to Radio Bakery. I mean, there are just so many spots in Greenpoint. I could just like spend a week or two eating in Greenpoint, I bet. I put a mysterious link for myself. You know, for the course of the week, I just forget what's going on. Oh, La Cantine, Bushwick. I would definitely go there. I talked about their desserts last time. So they do a flavored or they like to do a flavored tiramisu. So 4 days ago, this week's Sunsets tiramisu, cranberry juice soaked ladyfinger, cranberry jam, white chocolate rosemary, hazelnut praline, cranberry jam, and honey mascarpone and cranberry dust. Okay. So yeah, I'd want to go there. I mean, I need to get I'm constantly shouting products out. I need one of these products to sponsor me, and I will go to New York and review places once and for all. The last time I went to New York, I've talked about this. I went to Frankel's and spent like $50 something on 2 breakfast sandwiches. Was it worth it? No, absolutely not. But it was good. I spoke last week of a person named Yo on TikTok who was eating katsu plates, but also sometimes eating Japanese McDonald's, sorry. And I was really interested in what he was eating, but not enough to look it up. And I had a person stumble onto my TikTok feed called Snack Eating Snack, and he went to a Japanese McDonald's and got all of the original products and reviewed them. So I did get a little bit more insight into what this person was eating. So he was eating these beef stew pies that have cheese in them. Snack Eating Snack wasn't a huge fan. He said they were too sweet. Yo was eating some sort of panko breaded sandwich, which I think was a shrimp burger, like a shrimp paste type of burger. And Snack Eating Snack did enjoy this. And there's some like seasoned fries that Snack Eating Snack said were too seasoned, which he said there were too many flavors going on, which feels insane. But there's something about the McDonald's fries that Yo was eating that just seemed darker than the American McDonald's fries. American McDonald's fries are very light and yellow. And there was just like a different type of color on these fries. Like maybe they cook them in a animal fat of some kind like McDonald's used to do. Okay, I'm definitely in my TikTok update portion of this list now. Eric King, who I follow on TikTok. I really like his stuff. I keep mistaking him for Eric someone else who is a New York Times writer. Why am I blanking on his name? Eric Kim. Eric King made an Aperol Spritz rainbow cookie, which I'm a fan of any cookie that is actually cake. Like, I'm going to talk, I think I have this on my list to talk about, but the Italian ricotta cookies that my sister makes, which are basically a black and white cookie dough, which is basically a cake dough. Black and white cookies are like a super soft, cakey dough, in my opinion, or that's the kind of black and white cookie I want to eat. These Eric King Aperol Spritz rainbow cookies in general are 3 layers of cake. I think what I realized is I just want a cookie that is cake. Like a little cake, like a little petit four, but it's a cookie. Anyway, so he made a standard, well, first of all, he altered the colors. So it was more like a sunset. So I think it was like a yellow, an orange, and a pink. And then instead of the raspberry jam, he did a marmalade. And then instead of the dark chocolate, he did a white chocolate. And then he flavored one of the layers, or I couldn't really tell. His videos are like very clipped. So I can't actually tell what he's doing. But he did zest some oranges. So there's some orange flavor in there. The actual flavor, if you drink Aperol straight, it tastes like a medicine from the 90s. It's disgusting. And I kept waiting for him to actually put Aperol in this, and he didn't. And I realized, oh, you're just like pulling out the nasty orange flavor from Aperol. It's a good idea, but like I don't see this as Aperol Spritz flavored. I think it's just like a fun alternative to the classic rainbow cookies, and I would love to try one. Back to some New York Times recipes. I was looking for an alternative. Well, I went to go look for the original recipe that we made for Christmas like 5 years ago for the chocolate cream pie. There's a chocolate cream pie recipe in New York Times that's really good. I don't have it pulled up, but we'll probably make that for Christmas. I also considered making the Flour Bakery version. Flour Bakery, which is in Boston. Apparently they have like a dark chocolate pie. I don't know if that's exactly what I want though. I don't know if I want dark chocolate. It's supposed to be really good, but I kind of really just like the simplicity of like the lighter chocolate silkiness of this New York Times pie. Anyway, I found a recipe for an espresso pie. And I was like, yeah, that might be good. I think it was like a layer of chocolate cream and then a layer of espresso cream made with instant espresso, which puzzled the hell out of every commenter. Every commenter was like, what is instant espresso? One of the comments I saw was, this was a hit. I left out the espresso. It's like, okay, so you didn't make espresso pie. God, what recipe was I reading? The New York Times comments are so crazy. Someone commented the other day, like, I made this. I'm a kid. I've only had one tweet go viral, and it was from a brownie recipe where that woman wrote, like, I used to make these, and like this woman kept asking me for the recipe, and I gave her the recipe, and then she cheated on me, or like now she's married to my husband. I probably went viral because Maggie Winters retweeted it, and then it just sort of exploded from there. I didn't realize that this New York Times comment had a life and like people knew about this. I just like saw it for the first time and was bewildered and posted a screenshot of it, and it again bewildered the internet. The New York Times, I mean, any cooking recipe section is an interesting place to watch people debate. I mean, take this TikTok video argument I got with this person. I mean, I wouldn't call it an argument. I thought we were having a dialogue, but now I know better. I would like to know more about the Boston market theory and how that's connected to all this. I don't see it, but I'm interested. I'm willing to have my mind changed. Okay. This was a TikTok video. Sometimes Paige DeSorbo's TikTok clips come on my TikTok feed, and she and Hannah were talking about how Bobby Flay is allowed to wear a scarf because of the toxic masculinity qualities of his field of work, which I thought was interesting. Like, chefs can wear like a skinny decorative scarf because it like balances out their line of work. I was like, I guess that kind of makes sense. I remember I had a close friend once, who was really head over heels over this guy who was sort of giving her the runaround. And he wore decorative scarves. And every time she would get upset over him, I was like, I just want to remind you that he wears skinny decorative scarves. And he, I don't even know what he did for work. He worked in an office, constantly wearing a decorative scarf. If you have like some sort of neck surgery that you're covering up, I get it, but he definitely did not. Men wearing decorative scarves is weird unless you're like in France. Speaking of toxic masculinity in restaurants, I was at my office holiday party and met one of my coworkers for the first time, who always works from home. I guess he also had worked in the restaurant industry for 10 years. So we talked about food, and that was fun. But of course, anytime you talk to anybody about restaurants, a third party always comes in and says, "Oh, have you seen The Bear?" No, and I will not. I don't want to be triggered. I'm not looking to be triggered. And, like working in restaurants, being screamed at, being disciplined beyond your wildest dreams, I'm not looking to relive that. Rick Bayless said that The Bear set the restaurant industry back 15 years, and I believe it. And that's enough for me to not ever watch that show. We don't need to glorify that culture. We don't need to glorify men yelling at people any more than it's already glorified. Okay. Oh my God. We're already at 42 minutes. Oh my God. Okay. Brian coined a term this week, which is name of ep. I already determined it. Mac and Febreze. And this is a nod, I realized, to the recent Stradio Lab episode, which is my new favorite podcast. Simply and beautifully titled Febreze, in which their guest, I forget her name, she goes on a rant about Febreze, which is totally accurate. You must listen to it. It's about how stupid and ignorant people are, and they'd rather just spray Febreze over their problems than clean their house. And really how it's a societal failing. It's not an individual problem, but I don't know. Like, why are you spraying Febreze on your clothes? There's a lot to unpack there. But anyway, back to Mac and Febreze. Talking about food from other people's homes. We would have a fun fair in elementary school growing up, and there was a cakewalk. And one year I won a cake, and I was over the moon. All I wanted was like a shitty box cake with shitty box frosting. Like, my mom wouldn't make that, so that's all I wanted. And I finally won a cake, and my mom let me take one giant bite out of the cake and then threw it away. She would not let it in the house. And I thought, what a monster. As an adult, I totally understand. Like, some mystery cake that's been sitting out all day in a yard that you have no idea who made it, and your child just won it. Yeah, I would throw it away too. I'm scared of food from other people's houses. Actually, today there's a potluck at my work where people are bringing in food. There's something about, oftentimes Brian's parents will bring us food that somebody has made from church, and they'll bring it to our house. Or I don't know, just people in the community make food and they drop it off at our house. I cannot tell you how much it smells like Febreze. And for the longest time, I'm like, why does it smell like this? Like, it makes us gag and we have to throw it away. There's something about, I don't know if it's like the environment that it's being cooked in. I went on Reddit about this and I was like, what is happening? Why do people make food in their homes and then it like smells like sweet and like soap or like synthetic like scents? And according to Reddit, this is people cooking in their home with like Glade plugins and Febreze, and there's like so much fake scent baked into their homes that it's transferring to the food. It's just in the air. So it's transferring into the food that they're making and you're tasting it. I believe this to be the case. So now we call it Mac and Febreze, and I'm truly scarred even more deeply than before thinking about all the Glade plugins I've ingested. Let's move on because I'm getting sick. I saw a product on TikTok. It's a layer frame ring. A lot of like French guys are coming up on my TikTok feed, or like guys who want to be French, or like guys who cook in a French, very like restaurant style. Do you know what I mean? And use like products to make their food. It's like a construction project. But actually this layer frame ring was really cool. This person made a rectangular layered piece of butter. I don't know how to describe it. So it was like layer of butter, and then he sprinkled leek powder all over it. And then he put, the point of these like frame layers is that it's even layering. So then you just repeat it and then you slice it. And when you slice it, it's a piece of butter with lines of leek powder or whatever you want. Be great with cinnamon, I think, for like a cinnamon toast. Can't really think of many other applications, but also kind of seems like a waste of time. Speaking of waste of time, this made me think of the rise of ornament as a reaction to modern, I don't want to bring IKEA into it. I mean, I know that like we all know that Mormon aesthetics have infiltrated our world. And what's the name of that magazine? I can't even think of it. What's that magazine that Mormons created? Mormons created that magazine. It was all like minimal aesthetic. Like our modern aesthetic is all created by Mormons. It's really infiltrated into Scandinavian minimalism. They really took that magazine to heart for some reason. And I see all these people decorating cakes and it feels like a reaction, like decorating cakes to hell. And I love it. And I forget what the name of that cake decorating style is, but it makes me think of the Adolf Loos, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, essay, Ornament and Crime. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. It's something I think about all the time. He argues that any sort of decoration or ornament is a crime. It's a waste of time and resources. And I always wonder, like, I prescribe to that a bit, but also it's like, yeah, like, is ornament or decor improving our lives? Maybe not, but I also think that it is very much tied to memory and tradition. And you could argue that it's a waste of time and resources, and it's time spent away from interaction with our family and our loved ones and other humans. But something I constantly wrestle with. What is the name of that like cake decorating culture? Hold on. Okay, it's called Lambeth, named after Joseph Lambeth. Okay. Anyway, I'm watching a television program called Tudor Monastery Farm. It's like these three historians who like try and live like people in Tudor England. I've watched their Victorian farm, in which they try and live in a Victorian farm. I'm loving this Tudor Monastery Farm. program. Learned about something called a turnspit dog. I actually don't know if this is from the show or Brian, but basically they had a dog back then that was bred to run around in a wheel and turn a spit, like a roasting spit. And then, they went extinct because we don't do that anymore. But that was super interesting. I want to make a request to the Coca-Cola company. I think that they should make an extra crispy version of Coke Zero, more lemon, less syrupy, more carbonation, like the McDonald's Coke, but in a can. I would pay more for it. And here's a conflict that I want to talk about in my cake. Sorry. It's like cookie box season. It's Christmas cookie season. I want to bake. I love to bake, but I don't want to eat a bunch of sugar. It just makes me feel sick. I don't think I have the activity level or the metabolism to eat a bunch of sugar anymore. It just makes me feel ill. And I don't want a bunch of sugar on my teeth. I want a savory cookie box. And what would that look like? Here's the issue. When you're making cookies and like different fillings, when everything is full of sugar, it's preserved and it's easy to make a cookie box out of. When I think of savory cookie boxes, I think I want to make a horse-shaped cracker, a variety of horse-shaped crackers. I don't know why, but I do. Mini quiches. But here's the issue with the mini quiche. It requires refrigeration. I want to make a savory sablé. Crowded Kitchen has been doing a advent calendar series, like a recipe every day of December, that's mostly geared towards like cookie boxes. But they are doing some savory episodes. They're doing a lot of good recipes, I would say. They did a savory cheddar thumbprint, but the divot is filled with pepper jelly, which is sweet. I think filling it with boursin would be nice, but again, that would require refrigeration. I wish I remembered some of the other recipes that they were doing because it's been a really good series. Okay, a few more thoughts, and I really need to get into this. There was like a SWAT team standoff a few miles from my house last week. Some people ended up dying. It was a conflict over an ex-girlfriend, which is always worth killing people over. But through this tragic event, I did find out that there is a glow-in-the-dark cornhole place near my home. I have some brown cow maple yogurt left over. I actually went to Whole Foods yesterday to pick up something, and I heard a child begging for this yogurt from their parents. And I was like, I guess it's not just me. Anyway, I have this leftover yogurt, and I'm like, can I marinate chicken in this? Like, can I, like, in the same way I marinate chicken in plain yogurt? And I thought, like, for like an Indian curry that has fenugreek, which does taste like maple, maybe a maple yogurt would be a nice use. I don't know. I'm still debating this. My last, I have so many things to say. One of my cats is afraid of the sound of trucks. He growls at trucks. And I was watching a YouTube video the other day where there was a truck backing up and it was making like a beeping sound. And he ran around the house growling. And Brian has been playing truck sounds on his phone. Sort of as exposure therapy to get him used to the truck sounds. It's also kind of been funny. It's actually really mean. But I think he's slowly acclimating to the possibility that trucks might not be real. The reason I bring this up is because there are 1 hour video loops of truck backing up sounds, but it's just like a single sound and, with like 500,000 views. I would love to know why people are watching this. And being sick this past week, which is going to affect the content of my food log, I felt sick in the same way as I felt in kindergarten, and I woke up sick one day on Teddy Bear Day, which is not a nationally recognized holiday, but it might as well have been, because when I had to miss it, my mom made me stay home for a week because I had pneumonia or whatever. I was absolutely devastated. You just can't get that back. There's only one Teddy Bear Day, and that's in kindergarten. Oddly enough, in third grade, I also got sick and missed Ghana Day, which was a huge bummer. Also not a nationally recognized holiday. No idea why we were studying Ghana in particular. But missed that, months of prep for Ghana Day, and then I blew it. Okay. December 8th, 2025. It was a Monday. 10 a.m. Counterculture coffee with cream, 2 sunny eggs poached in butter over a slice of olive oil toasted La Farm sourdough, mixed lettuce with Brightland olive oil and balsamic vinegar, and blueberries made at home. 1 p.m. A cup of Earl Grey tea made at home. 2 p.m. Leftover buttered chicken and jasmine rice. 5 p.m. A C's raspberry cream chocolate and a lemon cream chocolate. 6:30 p.m. Dirty rice with leftover Jimmy Dean sausage, leftover jasmine rice, green peppers, harissa, beef shawarma spice mix, garlic, onion, garlic, and lime juice made at home. Oh, this was a snow day, so Brian didn't go into work, and we made a big breakfast. One thing I will never understand about Brian's breakfast eating ways are he always lets the runny egg yolk just harden on his plate, and he discards it. The whole point of an American breakfast to me is eating things to go with an egg yolk. That is the point for me. So I never understood that. Another thought that I wrote down is pastries aren't worth the calories on day 2. And I don't think I'll pre-order pastries from Bolted Bread for Thanksgiving again. That was a waste, I think. If you're going to buy nice pastries that have the shattering crispy crunch and they don't have that on day 2, like, what's the point? Because they taste fine, but that's not the point. You want that buttery shatter. I do think that restricting my sugar intake is making eating 1 or 2 chocolates a day taste better. And then I made this dirty rice, which kind of sucked, but it was a good way to try out. I tried to do like a Middle Eastern fusion dirty rice. I don't know. The rice got too wet, but I did use this garlic. So Brian actually got these seeds to grow this garlic, but then we saw it available for sale in Whole Foods, so I bought some. It's from row 7. They do interesting seeds. It's a combo of leek and garlic. You can use the whole thing. It's sort of like a scallion. I don't really think it has a particularly garlic flavor. I like it. I like that you can use the whole thing as opposed to a regular leek where you have to throw away the tops. So, yeah, that was cool. And I'm slowly using them. December 9th, 2025, it was a Tuesday. 8 a.m. Counterculture coffee with cream made by Brian. 10:30 a.m. Toasted La Farm sourdough with Badener, garlic, parsley, and basil compound butter made at home. 1:30 p.m. A bowl of bran flakes with milk and so-chilled tortilla chips. 3 p.m. A small cup of blueberries. 6 p.m. Cumin and chili, fried tofu, carrots, onion, and garlic over jasmine rice made at home. I did try to drink a cup of throat coat tea at some point during this day, and I had to throw it away. It was disgusting. I keep meaning to throw it away, and then I'm like, that's so mean. Maybe I should just try it again. And then I make a cup of throat coat, and I remember why it's so disgusting. I think there's stevia in it. It's like cloyingly, fakely sweet. And this throat coat tea in particular is eucalyptus flavor, which I don't think is supposed to be a flavor. It's disgusting. I was watching something with Brian and my sisters the other day, and one of the girls on the TV had like a bit of a hoarse voice, and Brian screamed at the TV, "Girl, get some throat coat," which I thought was mean. Also, like throat coat, do not get some throat coat, actually. Brian's the one who bought this throat coat. I don't know what sort of allegiance he has to this product, but I did end up throwing it away. I do want to talk about this cumin and chili fried tofu that I made. First of all, the price, I used to go to Whole Foods to get their organic tofu because it was $169 a pack. It went up to $179. Now it's $250, which doesn't make sense to me because soybean farmers cannot sell their soybeans. So why aren't we utilizing them? And the price should be going down. Anyway, even though tofu is $250 a pack now, I'm still buying it. I mean, what am I going to do? All the other packs are $250. So I wanted to make a fried tofu that was like Hunan, Nashville hot, Dubu Joram mashup. One of my sisters asked the other week, like, Caroline, do you marinate your tofu before you fry it? No, I don't. But I do freeze and thaw it because I think it makes it spongier and absorb the sauce better. I just fried this tofu straight from the fridge and it didn't make that much of a difference. So I don't know if I'm going to do that anymore. But I will say that just sticking tofu in a freezer is a great way to preserve it. But you have to then fry it. Like the texture changes so much that you can't like have a nice soft tofu out of it. So keep some in your fridge for that application. So I was inspired by this Unan beef recipe from the New York Times, which is just like a chili flake and cumin seed flavoring for the beef, which I employed. I was also inspired by the Nashville hot flavored mozzarella from Chili's, which is hot but also a little bit sweet. And then I was also pulling from Dubu Joram, which is a great Korean tofu, sort of sweet application. So here's what I did. I mixed sliced garlic, really hot Chinese chili flakes, cumin seeds, and fennel seeds, and put that in oil to fry. And then I added all those vegetables. And then I added a mixture of garlic powder, chicken bouillon powder, MSG, and sugar to flavor everything. The tofu's in there as well. I forgot to say that. And then once everything is like pretty much done and just starting to stick to the bottom of the pan, you finish it with some soy sauce and you spoon that over rice. And it's like kind of dry. Like it's not really saucy. It's more like a dry topping to your rice, but there's enough like residual oil and a little bit of soy that it does flavor your rice. I loved this. I think I like Dubu Joram, but I don't always like the taste of Korean. I'm blanking on the word. Their version of chili paste. Gochujang. I don't know. Something about it, I don't like the flavor of it. It's like a deep sugar flavor that I don't like. Anyway, that was good. I would recommend it. It was heavy on the oil, which I think does help bring it all together and bring the flavors together. Okay. December 10th, 2025. It was a Wednesday. 7:30 a.m. Counterculture coffee with cream made at home. 10 a.m. Leftover fried tofu and vegetables over rice. 3 p.m. Olive oil toasted La Farm. Sourdough with cream cheese. A handful of blueberries and a cup of black tea made at home. 6:30 p.m. A spoonful of Bluebell cherry vanilla ice cream and a spoonful of Bluebell coffee ice cream. 7 p.m. Roast bratwurst, German butterball potatoes, fennel, onion, and green peppers with chili flakes and olive oil made at home. I have a note here. bulk Whole Foods metal tin olive oil blend is more flavorful and fruity than the Brightland olive oil. Yeah, that was a discovery. This Brightland oil company needs to be taken down. I bought a new metal tin of like bulk, like world blend of Whole Foods brand olive oil, and it was so much more flavorful than the expensive Brightland olive oil that I got for Christmas. I see that they're doing like peanuts collabs. It's like, they're not in it for quality oil. Like, get them out of here. Brian stopped at a new Food Line on the way home, and I said, please take a picture of their Bluebell ice cream section and send it to me. He sent it to me and I screamed. They had the cherry vanilla ice cream that I've been looking for, and they had a coffee ice cream, which I'd been dreaming of the night before. This was a sign, and I was like, please. So I tasted them both. Lovely. I love the cherry vanilla. It has like big pieces of maraschino cherries throughout. And then the coffee ice cream was good. I just need a solid like bulk coffee ice cream, even though I decided not to eat ice cream anymore. They're in my deep freezer for when I decide to eat ice cream again. And then, yeah, I forgot. I keep meaning to roast this fennel that Brian brought home from the farm. So roasted the fennel with onions and green peppers and the potatoes. And Brian was late because he went to the grocery store. So I roasted everything for way too long. The Neiman Ranch bratwurst dried out. Everything dried out and got way too crispy, but it was actually kind of good. December 11th, 2025. It was a Thursday, 9 a.m. Coffee with half and half made at home. 12 p.m. A bean and cheese burrito from Whole Foods with avocado. 6 p.m. Beef lasagna and mixed lettuce with balsamic vinegar and tourangelle olive oil made at home. 7:30 p.m. A C's raspberry cream chocolate. Took my first sick day. That's really what was going on here. And I went to Whole Foods I took my first sick day in like 3 years. I don't know why. I'm just racking up my sick time, which is stupid because it doesn't pay out. But as a former Whole Foods employee, Brian thought that my decision to eat a bean and cheese burrito from Whole Foods was disgusting. I enjoyed it. It was very soft. The tortilla was nice and fatty. The interior was a mix of black and pinto beans. I would say that the Mexican flavor profile was generic grocery store mass-produced, quote, in quotes, Mexican flavor, but overall it was nice and soft. You could taste it was cumin forward, but it did taste mass-produced. And I did eat it with an avocado, which was nice, a nice addition. I'll talk about this lasagna process. I went down a rabbit hole of different styles of lasagna. I didn't want to make just like a red sauce and ricotta lasagna, that Italian American style that I grew up with. I was thinking more, let me try it with like the small meatballs and the bechamel or something different, like some sort of Frankenstein. I ended up taking direction from a Serious Eats lasagna recipe, which is called an all-day meat lasagna. So they did, let's see, it has a number of components. They do a ragu bolognese, which I was not about to do. I just didn't think it was, it's probably worth it, but I didn't feel like doing it. They do a bechamel and a ricotta. So let's see. The ricotta I flavored with an egg, salt, pepper, grated garlic, and cream, just to stretch it out and just make it a little bit more pliable. And then for the sauce itself, I had an 8614 ground Angus beef that I got on sale out of the freezer. Thawed that and then browned that in some olive oil with a yellow onion, 6 cloves of garlic. I had some Calabrian chilies and oil, and I cut those up. They really didn't come through in the end, or really add any heat. And they were in a jar of sunflower oil, which was disgusting. And then I didn't really get much brown, as you're not really supposed to do in classic Italian sauce making, but I did deglaze it with some of that Cos Rami Ter Siciliane Bianco 2023. I still have a bunch of fresh oregano from my garden. And I put a bunch of that in there. I used a can of Bianco di Napoli basil tomatoes. I threw a Parmesan rind in there and let that cook for a few hours at least. And I have to say, when I was in Whole Foods looking at the different cans of Bianco di Napoli, there was like a blue can and a yellow can. They're both on sale. That's why I was looking at them. But let me tell you this. If you have multiple product types of the same packaging type side by side, only distinguished by color, and they're different products, and I can't immediately tell what the difference is between them, you have a design flaw and you need to rethink things. I could not for the life of me figure out, and this happens to me with a lot of products. It's like, oh, there's like the blue can or like the red can or the red box and the blue box, and it doesn't immediately tell you what the difference is. The difference in the Bianco di Napoli is basil. One can has basil. You need to make it more apparent. So that was the red component of the lasagna. I did a bechamel. I basically did the Serious Eats recipe from this all-day meat lasagna. Butter and flour, super simple. 2 cups of milk. I'd use half a pound of shredded mozzarella and some nutmeg and some black pepper. And then I did a 4-layered lasagna out of all of this. I think sauce was on every layer except for I did sauce on every layer, but then I alternated bechamel and ricotta. And then I put the other half pound of mozzarella over the top. And I cooked it in a big metal pan. I have a Detroit pizza metal pan, and I cooked the lasagna in that, and it crisped up nicely. It was good. I think next time, I salted every component, but I would salt the lasagna noodles next time. They were no boil, but I did soak them in warm, hot tap water for 10 minutes with a little bit of olive oil so they didn't stick completely. I would maybe add salt to that water next time, or sprinkle each layer with a little bit of salt. I think it could have used it. But overall, it was good. Good thing to make in bulk and just have on hand for meals and for Brian's lunches. Okay, December 12th, 2025. It was a Friday. 8:30 a.m. Leftover coffee with half and half and an olive oil toasted slice of La Farm sourdough with avocado and sriracha made at home. 12 p.m. Leftover bratwurst. 6:30 p.m. Frozen Whole Foods pepperoni pizza, mixed greens with Parmesan and creamy Caesar dressing, mixed olives and marinated gigante beans, and a triple sesame tea cake with raspberry jam made at home. Yeah, frozen Whole Foods pepperoni pizza was on sale. It was a little bit, maybe I undercooked it, but I felt like the dough was a little bit doughy gummy. I don't know. I kind of like frozen Whole Foods pizza, but here's where the real treasure is. I was at Whole Foods the other night, and Screamin' Sicilian had a buy one, get one sale. So I got 4 pizzas for like $20, and they're much bigger than the Whole Foods pepperoni pizza, covered in pepperoni. So, okay, let's get into these they're called triple sesame tea cakes. I heard about them through Arthur Schwartz's podcast. He had a episode where he was talking about Christmas cookies because it's Christmas cookie time, and he says that his favorite cookie ever is this triple sesame tea cake, and that he can't stop eating them. He says they're better the next day. I'm always looking for a cookie that's better the next day. I want to know that in the recipe too when you're writing it out, whether or not I should eat it the first day or the second day or the third. I'm going to maybe disagree with him and say, I don't know if they're necessarily better on the second day. I like them fresh out of the oven. They sort of shattered in your mouth in a sandy, like a pecan sandy shortbread way. And then over the course of the day, they sort of softened and became chewier. And then the second day, they sort of crisped up again. So I milled flour actually for this. I had Brian's former employer gave him their old Como flour mill, which is apparently a very nice flour mill, but they wanted a nicer one. They gave us some hard white wheat berries with it, and I milled that for the flour. It was very nice. I mean, I needed 250 grams of flour, so I put a bowl underneath the mill spout on a scale and just poured wheat berries and ground them out into the bowl until it weighed 250 grams. What a fresh way to do it. So I made, I followed the recipe and made half of the cookies as the recipe instructed. And for the second half, I made a jam thumbprint, which didn't really work. They spread out way too much to hold the thumbprint state. I also should have chilled the dough like for much longer than I did for that. But they did spread out and leave a divot, so I just filled it in with more fresh jam and served them that way, and I thought that was great. So it was just kind of like a large thumbprint, and it kind of worked. People in the New York Times recipe so this recipe is a New York Times David Tanis recipe, and so I did obviously go into the comments. People were debating about whether or not to bake these as a round ball or to press them into discs, because you are supposed to roll them in sesame seeds. I press them into discs, which also maybe help them to spread a little too far. Some people bake them as rounded balls, which maybe is the way to go. In the New York Times photo, the cookies are cracked. They're like a little bit more thick and cracked. So I think that baking them more in a ball form is what's needed. Also, people in the comments, some people's had dough that was paste-like, and some people like a wet paste, and some people had a super dry dough based on the brand or style of tahini that they were using. Arthur Schwartz said that if you chill this dough, the flavor deepens. I shared this cookie with my boss. She came over for coffee the next day, which I'll get into, my former boss. And she said there are so many layers of flavor, such depth. It was nutty. I think the whole wheat flour that I ground fresh for it contributed to the nuttiness. It's called triple sesame because there's tahini paste, sesame oil, and sesame seeds on the outside. I was generous with the salt. It's sort of there is sugar in it, but it's sort of a savory cookie, I would say. And while I was sort of floating around on the internet, I found a similar recipe for Bene wafers, which is apparently a Southern Charleston recipe from traditional, the Western slaves from Western Africa brought over the Bene, which is their word for sesame, and made these wafers, which were a lot thinner than the triple sesame tea cakes, but seem very similar in style and flavor. And I think they would be great for a cheese board. I'm on londoneats.wordpress.com, so they did a recipe on that, if you want to check that out. But yeah, these were a good cookie, I would say, overall. And sort of in the vein of savory cookie that I was talking about before. I'm looking for like a savory cookie option for holiday gifting, but it's still sugary, so keep that in mind. Okay. December 13th, 2025. It was a Saturday. Coffee with half and half made at home, and a Badener Chräbeli from Anne. Butchering that. 2:30 p.m. Wontons in chili oil, Chengdu cold noodles, shaved noodles with beef, and diced chicken with pickled peppers over white rice at Asian Kitchen in Durham, North Carolina. So this is what I was talking about. My former boss and her husband come over occasionally for coffee. And for Christmas, she tends to buy me a Christmas gift. She brought Christmas cookies. Good thing I kind of anticipated that she would bring something over, like cookie like. So we did a mini cookie exchange. She really enjoyed these triple sesame tea cakes, and was familiar with the recipe. So, it is fun to be able to taste a recipe in the wild that you're curious about making. Um, so she made her Swiss grandmother's recipe for Chräbeli. Um, and I'm going to spell that for you. Chra with an umlaut Beli. So they're called Chräbeli, but my boss referred to them as Badener, which I think is the region where they come from. They look like a bear claw, but my boss said that they were supposed to be crab shaped, which was confusing to me because I cannot find any reference to that on the internet. And apparently, Chräbeli sort of refers to the claw shape that they are in. And these cookies are a better version of biscotti, in my opinion. It's basically a meringue. Um, I've seen a couple different recipes for it online. One of them, you mix sugar and eggs for up to 10 minutes, and you form this dough. There are obviously other things in it, and then you let it harden overnight. So when you bake them off, it's like a meringue cookie. At first, it feels incredibly hard, like you're going to break your teeth, but you just have to bite through it, and it sort of falls into this soft, pillowy, but also chewy interior. And they are intended for dunking. And I thought it was great with coffee. All right, so my former boss and her husband left around 1, and Brian and I drove to the mall so that he could buy Christmas presents. What a nightmare driving to the mall on the second Saturday before Christmas. But we did stop at Asian Kitchen, which Brian's always wanted to go to, and we finally went. They have like an American Chinese menu, but then they also have a Chinese menu with like fried duck blood and rabbit and frogs and all kinds of things. These wontons and chili oil were divine. If I go back, I would love to go back. I would also love to go back with a lot of people. I would get these again for sure. It was also interesting to see what people around us were ordering. A lot of Chinese families were there and Chinese couples. There's a Chinese couple next to us who ordered a big plate of greens. It was like a different, it wasn't bok choy, but it was something choy. And then a huge heaping plate of fried chicken, huge thing of soup, tea. They just had a really good order, and I was like, that's what we're doing next time. The Chengdu cold noodles were great, very numbing, and like a chewy hand-pulled noodle. The shaved noodles with beef was nice. It was sweeter, more like American Chinese tasting, but I did love the texture of the shaved noodles, which like were shaved off of a block with a knife into these like scrap shapes. The diced chicken with pickled peppers was a little bit disappointing. They had all kinds of like Szechuan like fried chicken. And I don't know, I thought that this would be a little bit more vinegary because it is pickled peppers, but it sort of just like fell flat a little bit. Anyway, great place. I would go back and I would try something different. I would definitely order the wontons and chili oil again. But overall, that was fantastic. And we did have to eat it all because we couldn't have leftovers because we had to go to the mall for 5 hours. So we were full enough that we didn't eat after that. Okay, December 14th, 2025. It was a Sunday. 9:30 a.m. Counterculture coffee with half and half. Avocado and fried garlic over olive oil toasted La Farm sourdough. And a sunny egg and Neiman Ranch bacon made at home. 1 p.m. Alta Langer Castelbelbo, Arnoldi Valtaleggio Capriolina, Somerset truffle cheddar, garlic water crackers, cracked pepper croccantini, and fennel pollen salami. 4 p.m. A pour of leather bee pear cordial with something and nothing yuzu and mint soda. 5 p.m. A C's chocolate truffle. Okay. I'm trying all the bacon brands at Whole Foods as they slowly come on sale. Neiman Ranch bacon. First of all, they had a normal version and a sugar-free version. So it was healthy. I got the sugar-free version. It was delicious. Absolutely delicious. I did it in the oven. I really think pan frying bacon is the way to go. I mean, because I just pan fried it last night for a pasta application, which I'll get into, I guess not next week, but the week after that, because Christmas. Yeah, you better get a better crisp in a pan if that's what you're going for. But I do want to try the sugar version. But even the sugar-free version was excellent. It's just like a weird thing to see on a pack of bacon, like sugar-free. And I will say I'm trying to use up this fried garlic that I have that I got at an Asian grocery store. And it's like, it's so good as a topping. But it does feel like if garlic was a cereal, that's what it would be. Had a cheese board midday. I keep forgetting that I hate taleggio. So I accidentally bought the same taleggio that smells like a diaper. It's this goat taleggio, Arnoldi, Valtaleggio, Capriolina. Disgusting. Had to put it separately with a separate knife and let Brian eat it. I didn't actually eat any, but it's nasty. I really liked this Castelbelbo. It was super runny, like so runny, and I had to get it, even though it was very expensive. Let's see, where is it? It's pasteurized, 2 weeks, cow milk and goat milk and sheep milk from Italy. 3 milks, one unbelievable eating experience. Made by the soft cheese aficionados at Alta Longa in northern Italy, Castelbelbo has an ultra-thin rind, creamy interior, and an aroma like rising bread dough. Irresistible balance of flavors, grassy freshness, milky richness, bright finish. Yeah, I thought it was lovely. At first it was a little bit salty, but it works. And this Somerset, well, okay, so I got a big hunk of black wax Somerset truffle cheddar from Whole Foods, 50% off. I'm assuming that it is this Barber's Truffler English cheddar. That's what I'm going to guess it is. A luxurious take on a British classic, Barber's Truffle Cheddar is made in Somerset by England's oldest cheddar-making family. This rich, savory cheese blends sharp, more mature cheddar with the deep earthiness of black truffle for an indulgent bite. Excellent. This was divine. And I know that truffle is overplayed, but I would eat this all day. And I do love this fennel pollen salami, and we ate the last of that. I did finish off the last something and nothing yuzu soda over this leathery pear cordial, which was a really good balance over a large ice cube. While I was looking up something and nothing yuzu soda, I came across a product called cornbread. There are these like THC CBD seltzers that are the brand cornbread. Though I'm sorry, but that is the worst brand name for a supplement / spike seltzer company. Like, rethink your business. I will say this something and nothing brand has a lot of great flavors that I want to try. Sicilian lemon iced tea, mango and Thai basil. Which other one did I really like? Ginger and key lime sounds good. But there was something else. Pineapple and pink grapefruit, I guess. I don't love pineapple flavored things though. Maybe the mango and Thai basil is my number one. Anyway, I have to go. Okay. Bye-bye.